Raleigh versus Chapel Hill. Two great North Carolina cities, head-to-head, who will win? Let's find out. Both Raleigh and Chapel Hill, along with Durham, make up what's called the Research Triangle. Our biggest economic hub here in the Research Triangle is the Research Triangle Park, or RTP. And it is a major hub for both healthcare, research, information technology, little bit of finance, and the Triangle, as we call it, is one of the most moved to places in the US right now and has been for the past few years. We are getting an increasing number of young professionals moving to the area because they know that incomes are high, prices are still along the national median. We'll get into all that later. Now, because Chapel Hill is about 30 minutes away from RTP, many young people make the decision to live in Raleigh or Durham to be a lot closer to the jobs, so they have less commute times. They're closer to other young people and, nightlife, which is harder to find in Chapel Hill, as we'll discover in the rest of this video. Now, there are definitely jobs in Chapel Hill. You don't have to work in RTP, and people who live in Chapel Hill and work there, on average, make $10,000 more per year than the person who lives and works in Raleigh. Chapel Hill is home to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, first university ever made in the United States, which is pretty wild. And so it's no surprise that a lot of people go to school there, and then they go on to work in both the government and education sector. There's also a lot of people in healthcare there. The UNC health system is very, very popular, and I suspect that they get a lot of their employees from the people who go to school at UNC. And this is a state school, so it's only $10,000 per year if you have in-state tuition. So it would make a lot of sense to go to school here, get an internship, then get a job in Chapel Hill, making more money than in Raleigh. Of course, you do have more job options in Raleigh, and you might be able to get higher pay because you're able to, leverage multiple job offers depending on your career path. Raleigh is definitely a lot larger than Chapel Hill, so there's about 500,000 people within the city limits. That number in Chapel Hill is 62,000. And I came from Dallas, one of the largest metroplexes in the US, so in comparison to that, Raleigh felt smaller. But a lot of people like that laid-back lifestyle. They don't want too much around them, so we do see a lot of older folks. We see families who have kids in college. That's an obvious big one there. And then again, those working professionals who maybe came out of the college system and decided to take the high-paying job right there in Chapel Hill. And there's many reasons to love Chapel Hill. For example, their school system is excellent. Both Wake County, which covers all of Raleigh and then some, and Orange County, which covers Chapel Hill, have excellent school systems with great rankings. People absolutely love them. I've seen people move across the country to be in a better school system, and they chose this area. Niche.com even said that Chapel Hill was the #1 best school district in the entire state of North Carolina. And then Wake County was ranked #7 on that same list. And I should know Raleigh has a major university as well, near downtown, North Carolina State University. In comparison to UNC, which is Chapel Hill, it's a little more on the STEM side. Some have said it's a little more practical, while there's a lot more liberal arts going on at UNC. But UNC is a lot harder to get into than it is at NCSU. But clearly they're both producing young professionals who are able to get high-paying jobs in both areas. So it really just depends on what career path that your kid or you want to go down, and also which place feels right to you. So let's talk about the vibe next. A lot of the homes there are historic. They're on the older side. There's a huge charm factor there. Like, it's super cute to drive through. It's also a lot more expensive, and we'll get into those prices later, but right now we're talking about the vibe. Many have gone as far as to call Chapel Hill the best college town in the United States. So that right there kind of sums up the vibe. They're also known as a major foodie hotspot too. So it's going to be a lot smaller and more intimate. People are more likely to know their neighbors. Meanwhile, Raleigh is more like a major city. You have two main downtowns to choose from in Raleigh. You also have quick access to the Research Triangle Park and the airport. Chapel Hill definitely has some fun stuff going on in it, but I will say that Raleigh, like any other city, has a lot more nightlife options. It has places for families, but it also has places for young people. It's a good mixed bag here in Raleigh. There's just more options to choose from. You also have all the outer suburbs of Raleigh like Cary, Wake Forest, Garner, and the list goes on and on there. Chapel Hill doesn't have any suburbs. It's kind of off on its own. It's a good 30 minutes from pretty much everything. Your next closest thing would be Durham, which is also, mind you, kind of a college town, just on a bigger scale. If you're looking for outdoor things to do, then I don't think Chapel Hill will disappoint, and Raleigh definitely won't disappoint. A really great spot in Chapel Hill is the North Carolina Forest. That's managed by UNC. It's a great area if you want to go running or hiking, biking. And south of Chapel Hill, you also have Jordan Lake, which is a great spot, big lake that you can go take a boat out, have a day at the lake. Now in Raleigh, my favorite spot is Umstead State Park, which has a lake of its own, but also has plenty of trails. They do camping, all sorts of stuff, and it's nestled right by the airport. You wouldn't even know it. I also like to head up to Falls Lake, north of Raleigh. That's a really big one with recreation areas, and people are always out on the water there as well. That's a part of the Mountain to Sea Trail, which stretches all the way from the mountains to the ocean. Whenever I make a video like this, I try to touch on safety, but I always caution you that safety is completely subjective. What I think is safe might not be safe to you, or vice versa. I will say that a lot of people consider both Chapel Hill and Raleigh to be very safe places, and I do find it very encouraging that Raleigh has repeatedly been called one of the safest cities and safest state capitals in the US, and Chapel Hill reportedly has a lower crime rate than 75% of major cities. Now let's talk about cost of living. For many, when they go to watch these videos, this ends up being the deciding factor, because Raleigh is significantly more affordable than Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill is 5% more expensive than the national average. A large part of that is the housing. Specifically, housing is 23% more expensive, or $150,000 than that national average. Now, the cost of living in Raleigh is lower than the national average. The housing cost is about on par with the national average. Some say it's about 1 or 2% higher. Some say 1 or 2% lower. It definitely has been growing rapidly over the last few years as we've grown a ton. If you're seriously thinking about moving to either Chapel Hill or Raleigh and you got questions, then I want you to call the number below or click the link in the description. Set up a time to just have a quick chat with me and my team. In the meantime, watch one of these videos next. I'll see you there.